I'm Darren Miles with Darren Miles Photography, and I'm based here in beautiful, sunny Southwest Florida. Well, about 3 weeks ago, I put out a video telling you 5 things that I just hated about the Nikon ZF. Well, today I want to spin things positive, and I want to tell you 5 things that I freaking love about this camera. And if you're curious to know what those 5 things are, stick around to find out. Number one, I think for a lot of people, including me, the first thing that struck me about the Nikon ZF was, in fact, the retro design. This thing harkens back to a bygone era of film cameras, and I think a lot of folks, when they looked at this, they're like, oh, it just reminded me so much of like those classic Nikon, frankly, some of the old school, even Leica cameras. And of course, the Fuji fanatic's gonna tell me it looks just like a Fuji. And let's be honest, it kind of does. I mean, this, if you saw this from this angle and didn't see the logo, you'd probably think it might be a Fuji. But that said, I think like a lot of people, or rather, let me rephrase that. What I've said numerous times in the past, if you've been on my channel for a while, I talk often about form and design meaning more sometimes than function. And to put that in perspective, when I saw the photos of the ZF, when they announced this camera, I just placed an order. I didn't even look at the specs. They almost didn't even matter to me because I loved the way the camera looked. I just assumed it was going to have a lot of what I needed. Fortunately, it turned out that it really does have a lot of what I needed. But I think the number one thing which kind of tugged at my heartstrings, I'm sure it tugged at a lot of other people's heartstrings, is that emotional connection you feel with design. And the ZF has the design thing down in spades. It's an absolutely beautiful camera, and my initial reaction was, I gotta have one, before I even knew what the camera was even capable of. Number 2, this one's kind of a given, but in this day and age, you would figure that every camera has pretty decent image quality. And the reality is every camera does have pretty decent image quality today. But the ZF's image quality is just sublime. I absolutely love the images that I'm getting out of this particular camera. It's just amazing. I know such terms like when people say things like, wow, the image quality is amazing, the image quality is sublime, those things are kind of hard to quantify, and they're very overused and often overblown, but I'm telling you, the image quality from this camera is just fantastic. Maybe it's the new X-Speed 7 sensor or processor, because I think you all know that or if you're into Nikon, you probably know that the image sensor inside the ZF is the same sensor that's inside the Z6 Mark II. And the Z6 Mark II is pretty amazing in and of itself, but the ZF has just a notch bit better image quality, at least in my experience. Now again, this is probably pretty subjective stuff, but in my experience, the image quality of the ZF has just been awesome. Number 3. Number 3 is the autofocus system. The autofocus system of the ZF has been borrowed, or rather passed down, from both the Z9 and the Z8. And that's a great thing, especially at this price point. I mean, at this price point, to get this kind of autofocus system, that's pretty damn fantastic. The autofocus on the Z6 Mark II, which has been my workhorse the last couple of years, it's pretty good, to be brutally honest. Now, it's not as good as the latest Sony or Canon cameras' eye detect autofocus, but the ZF's autofocus absolutely is every bit as good as those systems, if not better. The subject detect can be set to people, it can be set to animal, vehicles, airplanes. It can also be set to automatic, and frankly, the camera does a pretty good job of picking up whatever the subject is, be it my cat or my dog or an airplane or a person. It seems to pick it up really, really well. The bottom line is autofocus systems in today's cameras, they don't get much better than this. In fact, this particular camera, I'm assuming now along with the Z9 and the Z8, I've used the Z9, I have not used the Z8, they are definitely on par with the latest and greatest autofocus systems that are out there. Nikon might have been a little bit late to the game with this, but the fact of the matter is they're here now, and the autofocus system on the ZF is just spectacular. Number 4. Now this one might actually come as a little bit of a surprise, because if you're anything like me, if you looked at this camera, the first thoughts that crossed your mind, or rather the first thoughts that crossed my mind, were This looks like a fantastic old school stills camera. However, what's really surprising about the Nikon ZF is that the video quality is just excellent. I mean, it's so much, I don't know what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting this. This is just so much better. It's 422, 10-bit, the color's amazing. I usually shoot my videos in 1080. I don't shoot them in 4K, especially because the majority of times people are looking at your videos, be it the real estate videos that I shoot, or even here on YouTube, they're looking at them on little screens like this. The difference between 1080 and 4K on a screen this size is kind of nominal, to be brutally honest. But that said, I was genuinely surprised at how great the video quality is, because up until about 2 months ago, my primary video camera for my real estate listings was the A7S III, which, by the way, is a fantastic, kind of set the standard for a while as far as like a mirrorless camera was concerned. But I gotta tell you, I don't know why, but I'm able to recover shadows better in the ZF, which is hard to do in video. Again, based on my experience, I'm not an expert videographer. I do real estate videos. I do some corporate videos, but by and large, I am not like a full-blown videographer, but I do enough to be dangerous. And when I try to recover shadows on other systems, it's almost like trying to, it's like most of the color profiles have been pretty much baked into the video. But for whatever reason, in post, I have more flexibility with this. And again, I'm not even sure I can tell you why. All I can tell you is that the images from a dynamic range standpoint look much more balanced. Shadows, highlights, there's more range in the image. It's been fantastic to work with. And I've absolutely been pleasantly surprised by this one feature about the ZF, because I wasn't expecting it. Because again, when I saw the ZF, my first thought was, wow, this looks like a fantastic stills camera. Well, let me tell you something. The ZF isn't just a great stills camera, it's also an amazing video camera. Number 5, Nikon did a really great job of building in a lot of like clever, it's probably the best word I can use for it, clever ergonomic touches that make you wonder why some of these things were never done before, or nobody's ever done that before. I like the way the little lever here is in the side that allows me to switch between the different modes, the different shooting modes. I think that's really neat. I like that. I like the look and feel of these dials and buttons. Again, I can hear Fuji users going, we've had that for years, and you have. Nikon folks like me haven't, so this is kind of exciting. It's just kind of cool and fun to look at, but these are very tactile, rigid, solid dials and buttons. They're really well thought out and well put together. They feel substantial. One of the things that's really, really great when I'm shooting video, and here again, this is one of those things that makes me wonder why nobody ever thought of this before. When you're recording, sometimes there'll be a little red dot on the top of the screen that'll let you know you're recording. With Nikon, with the ZF, when I push the record button, watch what happens to the screen. There's like this red, oh wait, I'm in photo mode. There's like this red box that appears around the edge of the back screen, letting you know that you're currently recording. It's a simple little thing that has just made me wonder, why didn't anybody else do that before? Because that's a neat little touch, and it makes it really obvious that you're currently live and active and shooting video. With a lot of the other cameras, you push the record button, and again, you have a tiny little dot up top. Some of the more dedicated cinema cameras will have red lights that'll be on, but obviously the majority of these smaller cameras like this don't have that. But that red block around the rear view screen, I think, is pretty genius. I thought that was a pretty smart thing to do. So when you add up that little, the red light or the red box around the back, the dials, the way these buttons feel, everything's just very solid and substantial, and it just feels like an old school, high quality camera that makes you think, wow, they don't build them like they used to, except they do, because this is a current and modern camera. So hats off to Nikon, because all in, they've just done a great job with the ZF from an ergonomic standpoint, and just how cleverly this whole thing was put together. It's a really pleasurable camera to work with. So there you have it. Those are 5 things that I love about the Nikon ZF. So I'm curious, what's been your experience with the camera? What are the things that you absolutely love about this camera? I'm curious to hear what you have to say, so please comment down below and give us your thoughts on the Nikon ZF, and see if there's other things that you love that maybe I missed, or maybe some things that drive you crazy referencing my other video. Anyway, Just the bottom line is, I love this camera. I can't recommend it enough. I'm Darren Miles with Darren Miles Photography, and I'm based here in beautiful, sunny Southwest Florida. If you like videos like this, go ahead and give me a like, or better yet, subscribe. And until the next time, thank you so much for watching, and happy shooting.